Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update video today. We'll have a bit of a chat about what's going on here in Spain, some new changes that I've recently found out about, so we'll have a bit of a chat about that today. Let's go. Now the first thing I have to take care of today is a flat tyre. I found out that the tyre on the Subaru was flat for some reason, don't know why. I think it's just a normal pinchazo, as they say here in Spain. So off to a workshop or a specialist tyre place to see if I can get that fixed. Hopefully it won't be too expensive, because as we know, inflation at the moment, prices going through the roof, so hopefully they won't charge me an arm and a leg to get this tyre fixed. Now there's been some changes regarding the entry requirements into Spain. The government has announced that people with a COVID recovery certificate, that is people that have had COVID in the last 6 months and have recovered, are now allowed to come to this country, and apparently you don't have to be vaccinated. So I'm sure lots of people in the United Kingdom are looking forward to being able to come to Spain now for a bit of a spring break, let's say, given that the weather here is getting better and better as the days go by, and we're getting into that spring weather. We've got a pre-taste of spring at the moment. It's around 18 degrees every day. It was a bit rainy the other day, but the last 3 or 4 weeks have been very spring-like conditions. So hopefully that doesn't mean that spring is going to be wet. Let's hope that it isn't. Now I get the feeling that we're putting the pandemic behind us now after 2 long years, almost 2 years to the day. We're starting to put the pandemic behind us. Rules and regulations are going away, incidence rates are going down, and hopefully we won't hear terms like incidence rates again for a while. The focus has now shifted to the unfortunate situation in Ukraine. So the focus has gone from pandemic to war. And I know that some conspiracy theorists will have their opinion on that. I've already seen comments in the comment section from people saying that, what war? There's no war in the Ukraine. There's people streaming from the center of Kiev and there's no war at all. Well, if that is the case, we are living in a very strange world with people who believe that. But anyway, people are willing to believe anything nowadays, and they're willing to share their opinions, which I think is the worst thing. I mean, you can have an opinion on certain things, but why do you share rubbish like that? That's the question. What makes you go to a comment section on a YouTube video and share a comment like, what war? There's no war. Absolute idiots, in my opinion. But people don't like me calling people idiots, so I'll take that word back. So strange people, let's say, that don't believe anything that they are told nowadays on mainstream media, which is a shame, because I know mainstream media has its critics, but when it comes to things like this, I think they are reporting pretty much what's going on, because they do have people on the ground there, and you can see the missile attacks and things like that, unfortunately. Now, something else that caught my attention yesterday was related to the Costa del Sol, and how the tourism industry there has said that they're going to start looking for different sources of tourism, given that the British tourism down there has dried up a little bit. I think it was something like 30% of tourism and 28% of all hotel stays were British in the past. And apparently that's not the case anymore, so they're going to start looking for Scandinavians, people from other European countries, the French, Germans, other countries, to try to fix that gap between the lack of British tourism and local tourism, of course. And the idea is to get the Costa del Sol back to pre-2019 figures. Whether that is possible this year or not, I do not know. But as I said, the pandemic's starting to go away, travel restrictions starting to ease, and hopefully more and more people will be planning a holiday to Spain to keep that vibrant tourist industry going down there. So those are some of the changes, and I think it probably needs to happen in other parts of the country as well. I think in places like Benidorm as well, maybe you need to take the reliance off British tourism and start looking for other sources. It's going to be difficult considering that Benidorm for the last 30 or 40 years has catered to that British tourist with all of the bars and restaurants and things like that down there. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not they can change places like that. We'll see. It's not easy to change these infrastructures, of course. They have been in place for a long time, as we know, and all of a sudden, if you want to change them, not easy, especially if you've opened a bar that is dedicated to British tourists, that sells British food, British beer and all of those things. Not easy to change and try to get other people to walk in the door, and that's been a big problem for those businesses because they were basically catering exclusively to the British tourist. And of course, with all of the problems that we've seen over the last few years, British people coming to this country, it has been difficult for them to get any business at all in places like Benidorm. So we'll see what happens. Now I've got a few minutes to kill before this place opens because it's not going to open until 9:30. So I'll just park here for the while and finish this video off. And the final thing I'll talk about today is the rocky relationship between the two coalition partners in the government, the PSOE and Podemos. Again, they are having some problems with the war in Ukraine. Apparently the European Union is going to send weapons to the Ukraine. That's what the press is talking about nowadays. And there are individual countries also talking about sending weapons to arm people in that country. And the government here yesterday, the Prime Minister, Mr. Sanchez, said that Spain is not going to do it unilaterally. They're going to do it through the European Union, and rumours are that Podemos is forcing them not to get involved sending weapons directly to the Ukraine, because as we know, one of the big policies of Podemos is an anti-war stance. The leaders of that party have led a lot of the anti-war rallies over the last few decades in this country, especially going back to Spain's involvement in the Iraq War. And obviously they don't want their name involved with weapons sending to war-torn areas. So that's another problem for the government. And there's also talk about Spain increasing its military spending, and that is another thing that Podemos would not be happy with. If it was up to Podemos, they would have virtually zero military spending. They would spend it on other things, for example, social things, trying to get people, for example, into homes, giving them more social benefits, and taking away all of that money that goes towards war. They would probably even get rid of the Ministry of Defence if they had their opportunity. But I don't think that's going to happen because, as I said, they are a minority party in this country. So pressure on the government to increase military spending, pressure inside the government to reduce military spending, so not an easy situation. Now it's almost 9:30, so this place should be opening soon. I think 9:30 is the time that they told me. There's no previous appointment, no cita previa, so first in, best dressed, as they say. So hopefully I won't have to wait too long to get this tyre fixed. But anyway, I'll wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the video out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego. Okay, so there's about 5 people waiting to get their tyres fixed there. So plan B.